Hi, welcome to Hillcrest Sermons, growing together.
Show us your heart's delight.
Welcome. My name is Tim. It is good to have you with us. I want to invite you to pull out your Bible, notebook, and pen and start flipping to Mark chapter 5 that we just heard. Mark is one of the four ancient biographies of Jesus after Matthew and before Luke, way to the right in your Bible. And you start heading there now. That's where we're going to be picking up. So we are in this series on the life of Jesus told in this biography of Mark. And right now we've seen that Mark is this master storyteller. He's crafting the narrative to understand the significance of who Jesus is. And the part of the story that we're in is Mark is relating these four mighty deeds in a row. That Jesus is more powerful than chaos, he's more powerful than spiritual evil, he's more powerful than disease, and more powerful than death. And the first two of these we looked at last week, chaos and spiritual evil, and the second two we're going to look at today, the scripture that we just heard. And what I want to talk about today, Jesus is more powerful than disease and death. And I simply want to talk about the idea that Jesus came, and we're going to see how this points ahead to the reality that Jesus doesn't just come to delay death, but to defeat death. And there's this hope that as we trust in him, that we can trust that he's either going to heal us or he's going to heal us. And so that's where we're headed this morning. And so let me set the scene, kind of walk through the story that we just heard. So last week, if you're here, we saw this incredible, dramatic moment. Jesus calms the storm in the middle of the night. They land on the far side of the Sea of Galilee, the other side. They meet their worst nightmare, this man running out screaming, this legion of demons. Jesus casts out the demons. And then after that, they're asked to leave. And Jesus and his apprentices get in the boat, and they head back across the Sea of Galilee to the territory of Galilee, this kind of Jewish region of the Sea of Galilee where Jesus has done most of his ministry, maybe back to Capernaum. And so we're picking up today. They've just got over that incredible event. They're landing back on the Jewish side. And right when they get back on the other side, crowds are gathering around him. I mean, you can see at this point already his popularity has expanded significantly. People are just crowding. They want his time, his attention. They want to hear from him. And this is what happens. They land on their side. And in verse 22, it says, the crowds are around, and then one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, he comes running up. I can just picture the disciples who lived through last week. They're like, another person running towards us. What? This time is different, though. Then the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him. My little daughter is dying. Please come, put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. And we know that at this point, the religious elite are against Jesus. A serious opposition have built up. Chapter 3, we saw the Pharisees are already beginning to plot his death. And I just wonder, what did it cost Jairus to go and approach Jesus? What kind of social shame, what blowback was he worried about? I'm going to go, these who are all the religious leaders are against this. I'm going to go to him, but he is desperate for his daughter. And he says, Jesus is my hope. I just found myself wondering, if you are a person of any kind of faith at all, my guess is you've had moments like this. Jairus moments. Moments of pleading for someone you love. I think about, I can remember vividly, I was in my friend's house in Vancouver. This was 16 or so years ago now. And we had a board game night on a Saturday night. I get a call from my brother. And my brother says, he's married and his wife's name is Brooke. He says, Brooke is going in for an emergency C-section. Her blood pressure is out of control. And it's 2 months early. And the doctors don't know if Brooke's heart can handle it, and they don't know if the baby can handle it. Will you pray for me? My guess is if you have any faith at all, you have had moments where you are desperately crying out to God. And so I just invite you to what are those Jairus moments in your life? Those moments where, and maybe it's for someone you love, maybe it's a physical thing, maybe it's a mental health thing, maybe it's a relational thing, where you're just on your knees crying out like, Jesus, will you help? Or something, I don't know. I have 4 daughters. I just find myself like thinking the world needs more dads on their knees to Jesus for their daughters. And moms and grandmas and grandpas and their sons and their nieces and nephews, all of it. I just find this connection here. Crying out for his daughter. We've all had Jairus moments. We pick up in verse 24, and it says, so Jesus went with him. And I just, you've been to like a Seahawks game, a crowd moving through narrow places. I just imagine how slowly, and this is the longest walk of Jairus' life as the crowd slowly makes its way through the narrow streets of this village to his home. And then, as they're going along, we find out they're all pressed together, they're jamming through these alleys, and we find out there's a woman who has heard that Jesus is in the village, and she's in the crowd. And if you've heard this story before, you know about this woman. That we're told she has had this bleeding issue for 12 years. And most people think that this is a reference to some kind of like constant menstruation for 12 years. And I don't think I can overstate how devastating this would be for this woman. The physical weakness, the social shame, in ancient, in first century Jewish culture, if you had, we talked about this last week, if you're bleeding, you had bodily emissions, you were unclean and you rendered other people ritually unclean. And that wasn't sinful in and of itself, but you were not meant to go around touching people and make other people unclean. So for 12 years, this woman would have got the message, you're not meant to touch anybody and no one wants to touch you. In this culture, this time and a place, for a woman, their value, their identity came from being married and bearing children. This woman would have been infertile. And so very likely, no one would have wanted to marry her. And what's more, we're told she's destitute. She has spent everything she has. She is financially broken by this. And we're told that she has spent what she has. There's no reference. It doesn't say her family spent everything they had. It describes a woman on her own. There is no father advocating for this woman. She is destitute. She is alone. She is desperate. She's in this crowd because she's heard about Jesus. Picking up in the second half of verse 24 there. Oh, no, I'm going to jump down. I'm going to jump down to verse 27 is what I'm going to do. Verse 27, it says, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. And I picture a shawl wrapped around. I mean, she probably wanted to hide her identity because she didn't want people to know she's pressing into the crowd. And I just picture like reaching between two people and just catching the edge of Jesus's cloak. She touched his cloak because she thought, if I touch his clothes, I will be healed. And immediately her bleeding stopped. And she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. she got a hold of his cloak, and she knew she was freed. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out of him, and he turned around and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" Jesus knows something happened. He felt something happen, and then he asks one of the more ridiculous questions in the New Testament. I mean, if he had a teenager with him, they probably would have said, "Hey, dumb questions get dumb answers." Like, who touched? They're all pressed together. I mean, it's like he shows up to Costco on a Saturday. "I sense there's a Canadian here." Like, it's like, Jesus, like, everybody, who touched your clothes? Everybody touched your clothes. Who didn't touch your clothes? And then what about the clothes? Not even who touched me. Who touched my clothes? Like, what is it about your clothes? You know, I'm sure the disciples like, he's getting more eccentric. Now he's focused on his clothes. And like Matthew, the tax collector, is like, "All right, line up. I'll take names. I'll get it all organized." Right? Like, it's just what a weird. And then Jairus is like, "Who cares about your clothes? We have to go. Who touched my clothes?" And I just picture everybody stops, and it's all, and Jesus, and he goes from like face to face to face to face. And then he locks eyes with the woman, and they both know. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, trembling with fear. I mean, this is a conservative Middle Eastern culture. You are not, like, women aren't going around grabbing men they're not related to, particularly if you are ritually unclean, going around and making other people ritually unclean. Like, she is trembling with fear. And told him the whole truth. And then he said to her, "Daughter." There's only one time in all the Gospels Jesus directly refers to someone as daughter. Daughter. Your faith, your trust has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. It's so interesting. Just a chapter earlier, in the boat, the calming the storm, Jesus rebuked his apprentices. "Why don't you have more faith? Why don't you have more trust in me?" And now this woman at the end of her rope is the model of what trust looks like. Your trust has healed you. Your trust in me. Go and be freed. Now, meanwhile, Jairus is like in an ambulance stuck in traffic. What? Like, we have to go. And we're told, just as Jesus is speaking to this woman, people from Jairus' house show up and say, "It's too late. Your daughter is gone. Don't bother him anymore." And I just wonder, like, in that moment, did Jairus feel like his daughter's life was traded for this woman's life? This one daughter of Israel is healed while this other daughter of Israel passes away. Time must have stopped. Did he get sick to his stomach? Jairus gets the worst news of his entire life. And then Jesus says to him, "Don't be afraid. I know your fear is so big right now. Trust me. Trust me." And so they head to the house together. And this walk that Jairus is on, I just picture it. He is suspended between these two realities of the news of his daughter's death and Jesus' invitation to to not be afraid and trust. And they walk into the house of death, the house of mourning. Jesus says the girl isn't dead, she's sleeping, because that is what it is to Jesus. And the people laugh at him, and then we're told they go upstairs in the second half of verse 40, and after he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in to where the child was. And he took her by the hand and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. It's Aramaic, Talitha cum. It's the kind of thing that an eyewitness would remember. I remember what he said. Talitha cum, and literally Talitha, it can mean little one, but it also means little lamb. Little lamb, arise. Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around, and she was 12 years old. And at this, they were completely astonished. The Greek here, it's like astonished to overwhelm. Overwhelm to like that you can't, speechless overwhelm. And it's times 3. They were speechlessly overwhelmed to a great speechless overwhelming. That's what it says. Like they're just utterly dumbfounded. And then he gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this. And he told them to give her something to eat. So I want to talk a little about what is this? This is incredible story. Jesus is more powerful than disease and death, but I think there's even maybe more going on than simply the mighty deeds. And there's a hint, I think, here in this verse 43. He told them not to tell anyone about what had happened. Which, why wouldn't you do that? If you want to grow in popularity, I've got just the thing. Like, what? Don't tell anybody what happened here. And I think what I want to impress on us today, Jesus is more powerful than disease and death, but these stories are told to point us ahead to the reality that Jesus did not simply come in the flesh to be a traveling medical center. He did not come to merely delay death, but he came to defeat death. Jesus didn't just come to be a traveling medical center. He didn't just say, okay, let's find out where the next graveyard is. We're just going to boom, 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 like one at a time. That's what I'm doing. Like yes, he came healing. Yes, he came raising the dead. But his primary mission was the announcement of the inbreaking kingdom of God and to go to Jerusalem to give his life on the cross to be raised from the dead. He did not come merely to delay death, but to defeat death. And we see in the book of Mark this tension that exists, that Jesus is stronger than disease and death. And in the book of Mark, people still die. John the Baptist in the next chapter, beheaded. They get his body. Jesus didn't go say, well, where's his body? I'm going to bring about that. Like, this twin reality of Jesus is stronger than these things, but still, even in first century Israel, there were still many people who were sick when Jesus walked this earth, because he didn't come to merely delay death, but to defeat death. Even for these 2 daughters of Israel, these healings were not permanent. They were beautiful gifts in their lives. And one day, both of these daughters again grew sick and lay on their deathbeds. These pointed ahead to the reality that Jesus did not come to merely delay death, but to defeat it. We get a pointer of that in the fact. Do you notice what they had in common? Do you notice what number the 2 women had in common? 12. Bleeding for 12 years. 12 years old. And of course, if you're familiar with the Hebrew Scriptures, what does 12 represent? The 12 tribes of Israel is this number that represents the people of God. And then we get this picture that over and over, the people of God in the Hebrew Scriptures are described in feminine terms. And I think it's this healing, it's a living picture. The people of God have become sick. They have become impure. They have become spiritually dead. And Jesus' mission, his big mission is to heal these things, to take out their impurity, to make them clean, to make them healed, and to bring them spiritual life. And yes, life on the other side of death itself. That in these ways, that these demonstrations of Jesus' strength over disease and death, they are signposts. They're parables, they're pointers, not the permanent solution. That Jesus didn't come to just simply be a traveling medical center. He came not merely to delay death, but to defeat death. He came to pull those who trust in him out the other side of death. And so what does that mean for us? Followers of Jesus oftentimes talk about living in the tension of the already, not yet. That Jesus has inaugurated his kingdom, but not yet completed his kingdom. That his kingdom is breaking into the world, but it has not yet come in full. And we live in this tent, the already, not yet. We live that already, both the religious elite and the unnamed person in the shadows can come to Jesus, and he welcomes them. Already, Jesus says to us, I will go with you on the longest walk of your life. Already, to those who have been named unmarriable or unwanted or destitute, he comes and says, you are my daughter, you are my son. And already, there are moments where Jesus does mighty deeds of healing, but sometimes not in the time or way that we desire. Because there's also the not yet. Not yet has Jesus' kingdom come in full. Not yet has disease and death been wiped off this earth. And sometimes we walk in the hope of the not yet, hoping in the day that Jesus will return and put death to death once and for all. And so I think this means we live in that moment. We with the woman, reaching out in trust, not knowing how it will turn out right now. We live in the moment. We live with Jairus on that walk, in both receiving the news and trusting in Jesus. That's where we live. To walk in faith with Jesus, to live in this tension, is the sense of, when I trust in Jesus, and I'm in the midst of this, I trust that he will either heal me or he will heal me. That he'll either bring me through in the already or he'll bring me through in the not yet. That it's either going to be okay here and now, or it will be okay in the end. And there is tension in that. But I believe that is where we live as followers of Jesus. And so I want to invite us this morning, to just where we find ourselves in this story. Where do you identify? What character do you identify with? I've asked this on these different stories. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk through some of these. And then in a little bit, we're going to have the worship team come back up here. But I'm going to invite, even as I talk through these, if you find yourself identifying with one, during the final worship set this morning, we're going to have some of the pastoral team and some of the prayer team in the back of the room. And if you identify with one of these and you want to be prayed for, I'm going to invite you to go back in the back of the room and be prayed for this morning. And let me just name some of the places you might identify. You might identify with Jairus. You might find yourself pleading with Jesus for someone you love. Pleading for them physically, pleading for them mentally, emotionally, pleading for them relationally, pleading for them spiritually. And just on your knees. And maybe today, Jesus wants to say to you, I am with you, and I am walking with you on the longest walk of your life towards this person. If that's you, we'd love to pray with you. Maybe today you identify with the woman Maybe you are here and you feel at the end of your rope. You feel like you've been given identities that aren't true. You feel like you're desperate. You don't know where else to turn. And maybe today, Jesus wants to say to you, blessed are you when you are poor in spirit, for you will find me at the end of your rope. And that when you're at the end of your rope, all you have to do is reach out, and I will be right there. And I name you my daughter, my son. Love to pray that over you. Maybe today you identify with that moment that Jairus got the news. There's probably some of us who this week got the news. And your fear feels so big. And Jesus says, I want to be bigger in the windshield of your mind and heart. Look at me and trust me. Maybe today you identify with the cynics in the house. There's probably, it's natural, it's human nature for part of us to say, come on, that didn't really happen. This is a fairy tale, right? It's interesting, there's Richard Balcom has done wonderful work on the Gospels, Jesus and the Eyewitnesses. And that's the title of the book that he's done a lot of this work. And he talks about how when we find these proper names in these gospel stories, they're like living footnotes. You want to know about this story? Go talk to Jairus. He's still part of our community. He would love to tell you about it. These little evidences of Talitha cum. Who remembers Jairus, the dad? You know who would remember? I remember exactly what he said. Or another way to think about it would be this. Maybe you've bought into this story. I think one way to talk about kind of the secular scientific story of the universe is that, kind of modern secular skepticism says that ultimately chaos, disorder, entropy, these are the things that are most real. Life, human life, they're an exceptional blip on the timeline of the universe. And one day, all will go back to chaos and disorder and decay. And maybe today, you could hear the good news that Jesus says is actually the reverse of that. It's actually life, the triune God who is life, capital L, who is the most real thing. Death and disease and decay, these are the blips on the timeline of eternity. And one day, all will be life. So I'm going to invite the worship team back up here, and we're going to move back into worship. I know some of the pastoral team has already made their way in back. And I was just, friends, these places where we are crying out for healing for ourselves, for those we love. Like, these are deep, deep places. And it's, if Jesus is just speaking to you where you're at, like, don't feel any pressure. But sometimes it just helps our hearts to be prayed for in these places of desperation. So I'll go back there as well. We would love to pray for you. And I just want to end with this. Jesus did not come to merely delay death, but to defeat death. How does he do it? When we come to the end of the story of Mark, we see how he does it. How does he do it? The story of Jesus is that he takes this into himself. He goes to the woman who is unclean, and he touches her. It's like he takes the uncleanness into himself. He goes to the girl who is dead, who is also unclean. He touches her. He takes that uncleanness into himself. He takes the bleeding. He takes the death. And on the cross, Jesus becomes the bleeding one. On the cross, Jesus becomes the Son who is dying, forsaken by the Father. On the cross, the Father becomes the one watching his Son die. On the cross, Jesus goes all the way into the grave. He enters the house of death, the house of mourning. And as the God-man, he takes death into himself and comes out the other side, so that all who trust in him, that he could take our hand and he could pull us through. Because for everyone who trusts in him, one day in the darkness, we too will hear that same voice say these words, "My child, arise."
Thanks for listening. For more info, visit hcbellingham.com and join us any Sunday, 9 and 11 a.m.